we do in confirmation class is have the students fill out notes on the sermon. We do that so we can see if they are learning and applying things like law and gospel, if they can distinguish them in the sermon, and also to see if they're grasping what I'm saying. By and large, my students have, especially this year's students, done a very good job. They seem to get the points that I'm making. They're grasping what I am saying. Few may not get the message I intend, but by and large, pretty well. Of course, though they aren't the only ones who give feedback on sermons. Very common for a pastor to hear something at the end of the service like, well, good sermon, Pastor. Sometimes someone will bring up a point that I didn't try to make, but that happens. And then another thing that sometimes will come up is someone will think the sermon's not for them. They say something like, that was a good sermon, Pastor. Too bad so-and-so wasn't here to hear it. Well, you can't really preach to people that aren't here. I've tried. It's not real effective. But that doesn't keep us from applying the sermon to those who aren't here to have those faults addressed. We often derive some sort of satisfaction from the sins of others. One of my seminary professors said, people love to hear you condemn the sins of the scribes and Pharisees, sins that they can't possibly commit. So while the sermon should be made applicable to those present, court disaster for a few moments by asking you to concentrate on the sins of others. I imagine you had the experience of repeatedly trying to get someone to give up a pet sin that makes them and the people around them miserable. The sin may be cheating or overeating, a short temper or a sharp tongue, being overcritical or apathetic, fickle or irresponsible. And they might be someone close to you, more than likely, a parent or child, brother or sister, husband or wife, employer, employee. More often than you can count, you'd venture forth tactfully and gently, trying to help them change for everyone's happiness. But again and again, you're up against that proverbial brick wall. The person may feel attacked and hurt and respond with anger or tears. They may accuse you of coming on as holier than thou. They may act surprised as though it must all be in your head. Or worse yet, they may quickly agree, promise prompt reform, but then quickly fall back into the same old rut. Using the imagery of the gospel lesson, it's like you are sending that person servant after servant, and each is rejected, beaten, wounded, in rapid succession, causing further pain and strain on your relationship. Might come to the point where you ultimately raise the stakes, marshaling all your resources and arguments, putting everything you have at risk to try to get through to the person. In the terms that Jesus used, we compare it to sending your son. But maybe in more modern terms, it comes to mind, maybe it's something like a parent saying, "Don't make me come in there." Now, I'm sure you either heard it or maybe have said that. Don't make me come in there if you and your siblings are goofing around after bedtime. Don't make me come back there if you and some of your friends are in the back seat of the car or the van goofing around, distracting the driver. Don't make me come in there because you know that then you're in really deep trouble. So, what happens then if a person rejects your final effort? It's like they kill your son, so to speak. And things don't get any better. Maybe they get even worse. You're frustrated, embittered, have nowhere else to turn. You've done everything you can. You may mumble something about a leopard never changing its spots. Or the cliche may go through your mind, you know, like, oh, they might just go to hell, which, of course, is what we're trying to prevent. By now, you probably are thinking, I know someone just like that, Pastor. You've described them to a T. And you likely wish they were here to hear this. Well, they are. Late April Fools. They're sitting in your pew. Because after all, don't we find it so much easier to spot the speck in our brother's eye, even if we have a log in our own eye? And so it's helpful to look at other sinners like us to realize our own spiritual state. Just as the prophet Nathan led King David to condemn the very sin he had committed with Bathsheba, so in condemning the resistance and rejection of others to God's appeals, we condemn those same qualities in ourselves. Just as that other person repeatedly frustrated your attempts to change their ways, so you and I have frustrated God's efforts to change, get rid of some fatal flaw in ourselves. We might be clueless as to its effect, its reality, but it's plain as day to God and the people around us, including those who we may have identified as that rascal earlier. We may be unaware, or we might be aware of our flaw, but have rationalized it away. There it remains, our pet sin, a monkey wrench in God's eternal plan, a cause of misery both to us and to God and the people around us, bringing us unhappiness. Yet over and over, in a pattern parallel to the parable, God has sent his servants and prophets, and they were beaten and wounded. Finally, he came personally. He came in the person of his Son, Jesus Christ. He came in the God-made flesh. He took this last resort, sending him in the ultimate effort to restore us to peace and harmony with him. Now, people respond to Jesus in many ways. If they respond with delays and denials, rejection and rebellion, resistance to hearing and acting on his word, his appeal, well, they're lumped in with those scribes and Pharisees who rejected Jesus and plotted his death. By persistent unholy living, we deny our calling as God's people. We bring shame to Jesus. The writer to the Hebrews affirms this, saying, "Those who turn their backs on Christ's blessed gift of life and salvation hold the giver up to contempt and crucify the Son of God on their account." Indeed, as the Son is rejected, killed, as this final recourse is rejected, the words of the landowner take on a chilling tone. "Don't make me come down there." As Jesus said, he ultimately would, but not coming with servants or his Son, not coming in mercy, but coming to destroy those ungrateful tenants. As Jesus said in his famous 3rd chapter of John, where we have that gospel in a nutshell, he says, "Whoever believes in the Son has life, but whoever does not believe the Son does not have life, for the wrath of God remains on him." Jesus' point is plain. Even those hard-hearted Pharisees and scribes knew what he was getting at. We, being enlightened by God's word, knowing what Jesus taught, having a good background in the Bible, having been versed in these things throughout this Lenten season, we know the original application of that parable. Israel was God's vineyard, and God blessed them and established them and protected them. Yet they did not bear fruit. They rejected God's appeals through his prophets. And so now God gets personal. He comes down there in the person of his Son, hoping they will respond to his powerful words of grace and truth. But we know how that ends. We know how they responded. They fulfilled Jesus' words. They were condemned by their own actions as they rejected the chosen cornerstone, as they put to death the very Son of God, as they crucified him as a sacrifice for the sins of the world. After he rose from the dead and ascended into heaven, some turned to him, but some continued in their rejection. They rejected his chosen apostles and the message they proclaimed. And indeed, that rejection continues to our present day. For many, their opportunity to respond has expired. But it's not too late for us. God has entrusted us with his vineyard, individually as part of his household, collectively as his church. He expects us to bear fruit, to take hold of and cling to Jesus and all the blessings he gives, and joyfully extend those blessings to those around us. He sends us his servants, pastors and teachers, parents and friends who speak to us the Word of God, warning us if we're off track, encouraging us to draw near to God and to receive with joy his forgiving grace. Yes, God sends us his Son again and again in the powerful word of the gospel and in a very personal way in the sacrament, so that we may turn from our sin and live in him. Yes, keep in mind the seriousness with which God sends his servants. He expects a response. Although God's sending is intended for our eternal happiness, although God has reserves of love and patience beyond our human understanding, through his prophets and apostles, God has made it clear that it is possible that one can turn him down once too often. Now, we have neither the knowledge or authority to know when his judgment will give way to discipline. But his word does warn us, our God is a consuming fire. And again, it's a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living God. And Jesus himself utters words of warning about rejecting that stone which supports and shapes his kingdom. Everyone who falls on that stone will be dashed to pieces, and if that stone falls on anyone, it will scatter him like dust. And so yes, while the Bible is full of these warnings, the Bible also overwhelms us with the assurance of God's incredible mercy and patience. Again, think of someone who maybe we quickly give up on them when we have tried to help them overcome a fault, but it didn't work. Well, God is not disposed to quit in restoring us to himself. He will not wish to consign anyone to hell. God is stubborn. He will not readily relinquish that bond he established with us in our baptism. God is love, and so he keeps sending his beloved Son to us in the gospel and in the sacraments, longing for us to embrace and hold fast to his truth. Truth spoken in love. Truth that will make us free. Free from those pet sins. Free from the spiritual death that sin brings. Free to serve him joyfully here and hereafter. Free to enjoy the glorious liberty of the children of God. God keeps sending his Son, even though he knows us more deeply and lives with us more closely than we know and live with our family or friends. He is not only with us, God lives in us. Our body is his temple. Our pet sins not only offend him, but rub him directly. Yet being that close, God still loves and keeps on loving, urgently appealing so that we can boldly come to him in repentance, seeking his pardon. So now, if after the service you tell me you have a better understanding and awareness of your spiritual state, a greater appreciation of God's efforts to restore and relieve you of these burdens, then I know I got my point across. And there's a gimme to my confirmation student there today. Put that down. You'll get an A for the day. So just as so-and-so counters and confounds our efforts to help them, so also more often than we realize, we do block God's efforts to help us. The compassion and despair and frustration we feel toward so-and-so are but an inkling of what God feels toward us, except that God doesn't tire, doesn't quit, doesn't grow weary in well-doing. He keeps extending his love, his appeal to us. And that love is the only power that can keep us close to him. And that love moves us to show that same love to others. Yes, even so-and-so who might resist our efforts to help and heal. By the mercies of God, keep sending your servants and prophets. By the mercies of God, keep sending His Son in grace and love. For we really don't know when to stop sending. Maybe it seems like casting pearls before swine, but the day will come when Jesus may well reward those efforts, where He will break through the barriers that people erect and bring them to the joy of fellowship with Him. Indeed, then we will rejoice with the only one who can snatch us from the jaws of death and hell, the only one who can usher us through the portals of eternal life. For only in Jesus will we enjoy perfect peace and harmony with God and with one another. Amen.
Amen.
Now may the peace of God, which passes all human understanding, keep your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus.